Well, since we're going to pull over for gas, I guess it's probably a good time to talk about gas mileage on the Street Bob pre and post stage 1. Alright everybody, what is up? What is up? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. We are out on the lovely streets of Philadelphia, outside of the city, on a little ride today. And today we're talking a little bit more about the gas mileage of the Harley Street Bob 114 that we are out cruising on today. Mostly inspired by a couple questions that I get pretty frequently in relation to the gas mileage of this bike. And a lot of this conversation is going to relate around gas mileage pre and post stage 1. So if you guys recall, I recently had a stage 1 done on the bike. We've got the 2-to-1 exhaust, we've got the Ness air intake, and then we did a tune as well. So over time I've received like various questions on how the gas mileage has gone with this bike, because again, if you guys recall, I didn't tune it right away. I did the 2-to-1 pipe with no tune and ran that for a little while. I got a lot of questions about that. And then once I did throw the new intake on there and the map for the tune, I got a lot of questions from that as well. So that's a couple things that I want to talk through today to give you guys some insight of my experience of what that has been like with my experience of the gas mileage pre-tune and post-tune. Also the different environments and things like that. You guys know I do a lot of city riding, stop and go, stuff like this, but I've also got some good experience with some longer road trips before the stage 1 and after the stage 1. I just wrapped up a long road trip, and that's where I really kind of noticed some of the differences that I'll give you guys some insight today. But before we get started on a lot of that, again, let me just say there's a lot of different factors that can go into this stuff. This is strictly just my experiences with the way I ride, the parts that are on my bike and everything like that. If you guys have any experiences with gas mileage on any of your bikes pre and post stage 1 or any other performance upgrades like stage 2 cams or anything like that, let me know what impact that has had on your bike and its gas mileage down in the comments. Let me know what your experience has been like. Did it increase fuel economy? Did it decrease fuel economy? And then I will go ahead and let you guys know what my experience has been like. I will definitely be curious to see if any of your guys' experiences out there align with how mine has gone so far. So make sure you go ahead and drop that down in the comments for me. And again, just another disclaimer, I'm no mechanic, no technician, obviously. So again, when I talk about this stuff, just my experiences of what I have noticed so far. So of course, just a recap of the stage 1, exhaust, air intake, and a tune. Obviously the tune, trying to get your air to fuel ratios matched up properly. So in my head, when I always think about that, I think about that as like you're most likely going to lose fuel economy. I always think your gas mileage is going to decrease when you go ahead and map it like that, because if you go ahead, you increase the air with your exhaust and your intake, you're going to have to increase the fuel as well. So that, in my just general understanding of it, makes you kind of think that you're probably going to lose a little bit of fuel economy. You're going to decrease your gas mileage once you go ahead and do some of those performance upgrades. And so with my approach to this, I kind of want to tackle it from 2 ways. Like I said, my experience pre and post with city riding, and then pre and post with longer distance traveling, like on the highway, because we both know those can drastically affect your fuel mileage so much. And I do a pretty good mix of both. I can't really just give this from one or the other. But I actually also just remembered one question that I had that I wanted to go over before I get into that. I did have the question of, did just the exhaust change my fuel mileage at all? And the answer to that, from what I saw, no. Remember, I put the SB Concepts 2-to-1 lane splitter on there with no tune or anything like that, just threw the exhaust on. I did not notice any noticeable difference of fuel economy or gas mileage with just the exhaust. So just throwing the exhaust on there, I did not notice any difference of fuel economy, no change up or down. So now to really get into the next part of that, city riding pre-stage 1. So pre-stage 1, riding around the city, short trips, you know, just very simple stuff, stop and go through the city, suburbs, stuff like that. I was getting anywhere around like 125 to 135 miles per tank. I'm going to look at this on a per tank basis. which I thought was pretty good. So anytime I got up around like the 120, 125, 130 range, I was starting to look for gas because the light was on. I had almost no bars left on the gauge right there, and I would fill it up, and I would put about 3 gallons in there. So obviously it's a 3.5 gallon tank here on the Street Bob, so with a half gallon probably left still in there, I probably maybe had like another 20 or 25 or so miles left on the tank itself. But so pre-stage 1 city riding, we're talking 125, 135 miles to a tank. So fast forward, we install the stage 1, now we're post stage 1. I have noticed a fairly, somewhat I guess, significant or noticeable, whatever you want to call it, decrease in gas mileage. So around the city post stage 1, I'm now looking at about 105 to 115 miles on a tank until I start looking for gas. Somewhat of a significant, in my opinion, noticeable decrease in fuel economy there. And again, I haven't changed my riding style or anything like that. So we're talking about maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of like, 15 to 20 miles less per tank in the city after the stage 1. So with the Street Bob already being somewhat of a smaller tank at 3.5 gallons, that does give you a little bit of like more to consider when you're thinking about some of those upgrades and things like that. A little bit more of a, concern if you're concerned about gas mileage or fuel economy, because just from city riding, I've noticed that you're probably going to see a decrease in gas mileage. And so then on to the next piece of that, highway riding. I did a couple longer road trips, out on the highway pre-stage 1, and, just cruising highway speeds. I would consider that anywhere from 70 to 85 miles an hour, give or take, more or less, whatever it might be. But just your general going out the highway, traveling, cruising, things like that. In those scenarios, I was really pleased with where the gas mileage was on a per tank basis. Pre-stage 1, I was getting up around 150 to almost 160 miles per tank. 150 to 160 almost miles per tank. I mean, I would start looking for gas around like 130, 140 just to be safe. I was always filling up kind of around that 150-ish space, but pushed it to 160 a couple times, which in my opinion was pretty good. I was pretty pleased and pretty happy with that. So then next up, on the most recent road trip that I just did, again, no real change in riding style, a lot of the same roads, a lot of the same highways, the same speeds. I started to notice that my fuel economy per tank dropped down to about, I would say like 130-ish to 140-ish or so. Once I got up around 140, it was really looking pretty slim there. I knew I was definitely having to fill up pretty quickly once I reached that range, but I was really planning my stops around like 115 to 120 miles, but I did push it up to around 140, 145, up around that range. So again, that's another part there where I noticed a significant decrease in gas mileage in that different scenario of highway cruising after the stage 1. So taking all that into consideration, the things that I have noticed after installing my stage 1, again, that's the 2-to-1, the air intake, the tune to get everything mapped right, I can confidently say that I have noticed a, I don't know if I would call it significant, but definitely a noticeable change in a decrease of my gas mileage. And again, that kind of tracked with what I was expecting or thinking, because if you simply just think, you're adjusting the air, you're adjusting the fuel, most likely going to be consuming more fuel in those scenarios with the flashed map and the flashed tune. But again, that is all specific to me, my riding, my parts, and everything that I put on there. I suppose there could be some scenarios where maybe you got better fuel economy after you put the tune on the bike. I also suppose some of the tuners out there could have different scenarios where maybe you can adjust them or have certain maps or certain tunes to get better fuel economy as well. That's something I might have to look into with my dyno jet also. Let me know down in the comments again what your experiences have been like with tuning your bike and these aftermarket parts, whether stage 1, stage 2, I've got to assume stage 2 is definitely going to drop your gas mileage. But definitely let me know what your experiences have been like with those stage 1s and the tuning. Did you gain gas mileage? Did it stay the same? Did it decrease? Because like I said, with my experience, I think I can confidently say that I have noticed a little bit of a drop in gas mileage after flashing that tune to the ECU. So to wrap it up, like I said, just wanted to answer some of those questions that I frequently get on YouTube and Instagram. Like I said, the first one was a question about just putting the exhaust on. No, I did not notice any difference in gas mileage with just the exhaust. But then again, the full stage 1, I have noticed a decrease in gas mileage after that. So that is going to be all we got for you today. That'll wrap it up as we finish up this ride along this little back river road here in Philadelphia. As always, if you like anything we got going on here, make sure you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down there. As always, ride safe out there, guys. This is the Moto Jawn. We'll see you all down the road. Peace!